So we're back here with the Chauvet Foot C2 DMX controller and an array of lights here that I've got set up. Over this past weekend, I ran a show with this controller and these lights and 5 more just like it run in parallel on either side of the stage. And there's some errant blinking and flashing between certain scenes. Right now we're in programming mode. We're on scene 11, which is a static mode where all 5 lights are in RGB mode with nothing fancy going on. When you're in programming mode, you can just select which scene you want to look at, and things will change as you push the buttons. Let's go back up to scene 10. So in this case, the light fixtures on the outer ends are in RGB mode, and nothing fun is really happening. The second light is pulsing. It starts bright, and slowly dims down to nothing and comes back up. The middle light is slowly fading between the 7 colors. I call this the fade 7. It's slowly, pulsing or fading through all 7 colors. The fourth light is a snap 7, so it is snapping through each color of the light. It's not responding to sound, it's just kind of doing its own thing. So when I'm programming the board, I will usually check each scene. Is this what I want? Is this what I want? And this goes up to 24, and you can program it however you want. But I was noticing that during the show, some weird stuff was happening during the transitions. So let's go back to 11 and get out of programming mode. We're on 11. Let's go down to 10. And I have to hit enter. Okay, that was kind of weird. Let's go back. 11. Some weird kind of flashing going on there. And back down to 10. So I was seeing this during the show, and I wasn't sure what exactly was happening. So I just set all these lights up and run this experiment again, and clearly something is still not right here. I've checked all the cables, I've checked all the AAC connections, I've got a terminator at the end of the chain for the DMX signal, and I started playing with this controller a little bit. Let's go into the fade setting. Speed is for chases. We're currently at fade 4. So this is about a 2-second transition from scene to scene. Let's change this down so there's no fade whatsoever. It's an instant transition from scene to scene. So we're on 11. This is the static scene. We're going to go down to 10. It's pretty immediate. And we get to what we want. Go back up to 11. And we've got our static scene again. So this seems to be working fine when you take the fade out. We're exactly where we want to be. So let's go back into this setting. Here we don't care about speed. And let's go to the worst possible, or the longest possible fade. Setting is just 16. Crunch, 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 crunch. This is about an 8-second transition. So let's go back up to 11. And all kinds of weird stuff is happening here. We're off, we're dim, we're off. What's happening here? Oh, strobe. Now we're there. So now we're at our fixed 11. It took about 8 seconds to get there. Let's go back down to 10 again, and this is watch. Some flashing, it's off. Okay, that's off. But that's strobing over there. That's off again. So, oh boy. So what is going on here? Well, it turns out this controller and these lights are doing exactly what they're supposed to. And this errant behavior is completely my fault. Let's jump over to the Excel spreadsheet and I'll explain what's going on. So here's our DMX map of what's going on. I've got 2 lights set to starting just 1, 2 lights starting just 9, and so forth. So the 5 lights you see on the ground happen to be lights, I think it's B, D, F, H, and J. And you can see, the first 4 lights from left to right are in the 8 or 7 channel mode, so we can do all the fun stuff. And that 56 at the end, it's just an RGB mode, so it doesn't have any options for the pulsing or any of that fading or snapping fun stuff. Here's the chart of all the DMX values programmed into the controller right now. So we're going between 10 and 11, and some names that I gave it, and then each of the DMX values for all of those fixtures. So what I've highlighted here is the mode. Right? So for the first fixture, we're going from mode 0 to mode 0, between 10 and 11, scenes 10 and 11. So RGB mode to RGB mode. For the next 3, we're going from some number to 0, some number to 0, and some number to 0. So scene 11, where we have all zeros, that's where it's static. We don't have anything weird going on in the mode. Over here, I have a little decoder ring. So for mode equaling 110, that's the pulse. Pulse 100, 0, 100. It's coming down, it's going back up. 140, that's that fade 7 that we saw, where it's fading between the 7 colors. And over here, for the 38, right, its mode was 215. So 215, 210, around there, that's what we saw as snap 7. So when we're transitioning from scene 10 to scene 11, or from 11 to 10, all of these numbers are rolling from this number to that number over the duration of the fade. So if we set our fade to 16, it's going to take 8 seconds for this particular value to go from 255 to 100. So the transition of this amber LED set changes gradually from 255 to 100. It gives you that nice fade. However, the same thing happens with the mode. When we're transitioning from 110 to 0, or 215 to 0, the controller doesn't know that we're using this particular channel for the mode. It's transitioning from 215 to 0 gradually over those 8 seconds, or however many seconds we have the fade set to. So as this goes from 215 and goes down to 214, 213, 212, all the way down to 0, gradually across that time frame, we're blasting through all of these modes and telling the light to do this, until we finally get to RGB mode. So whenever you're changing a DMX value through here, it's resetting the signal and telling the light to do something different. So your behavior is going to be weird when you transition from here to here, 215 to 0, over a non-zero amount of time. So when the fade is set to 0, it goes from 215 to 0 immediately. The mode changes right away, so we get what we want. But any level of fade, now this number rolls from 215 through all the numbers to 0. So all this weird stuff is going to happen on its way down to 0, or from 0 up to wherever it wants to be. So regardless if you're going up or down, the controller is telling the light, do all of these modes as you transition from one scene to the next. So what's the solution here? One option is to completely eliminate the fade, which I don't really want to do. Let's go back to the lights and take a look at that. So here we are in 10. Let's go up to 11. And weird stuff is still happening. So we're still in that fade of 16. This clearly is not acceptable. We can't do this. Gotta wait for it to catch up, and now we're done. Let's get rid of that because that's really weird. Function, enter, fade. Let's go down. Let's just get rid of the fade altogether. Rolling all the way down, crunch, 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 to 0. Enter. So again, we're on 11. It goes down to 10. It's immediate. We get what we want. I like to have some kind of transition between my scenes, though. Right? If we're going into a slower song or whatever it is, this can be jarring, especially if you're going from a darker scene to a brighter scene, the other way around. A transition is nice. So 0 isn't really an option either. Okay, well, what about like 1 or 2? Let's try 2. That'd be about 1 second transition. Let's go up to 2. All right, so we're on 11. This is our static scene. Down to 10. There's still some weirdness going on there. The fourth light over there went black for a second. Let's go back up to 11. Yeah, that's weird and jarring. And this is what was happening during the show, right? It's not clean because that DMX signal being sent from mode is rolling through a bunch of numbers. Even though it's fast, the lights are trying to respond as fast as possible, which is what you want them to do. This is totally on me. So what's the actual solution? How do we use this board the way we want to, using snappy transitions or nice fades, depending on where we are in the show? Well, for that, let's go back to that chart again. The issue happens when we transition from 0 to non-zero. So it happens a number of times, 3 or 4 times on this light, happens a bunch over here. I'm going from RGB mode to, this is pulsing from on to off. This is fade 7. This is also fade 7. This is up and down pulsing. This is down. So this changes quite a bit. Where's our mode over here? And we've got all kinds of stuff happening over here, going from 0 to non-zero, back to non-zero. So it's a mess over here. So one option would be to not use any of these modes. That's not super fun, right? The other option would be is to group as many of these modes together as possible. So we're not changing the mode too much, but still we'd be rolling from 80 to 170 here, or 245 to 110 here. And I think that would be visible going from a snapping transition down to a pulsing, right? You'd go through these other modes just here. So I think the answer is to put like modes together somewhere in here. And when we're building a show, program it such that your mode changes aren't so drastic, right? Maybe you go from a 7 to a 3 or a 7 to a 7, and you won't get so much flashing. And maybe keep your fade down to a 1, maybe a 2. So there's some compromising that needs to go on here. You want your show to be exactly what you want, but to go from a 0 to a 140 to a 0 to a 110 to a 0 to a 170 to a 0, like this, it's going to flash every time you do this, it was jarring. It was a little concerning. I think when lights are doing what you don't want them to do, people will notice. So either the mode needs to stay the same, and maybe these rear lights are constantly in one of these fixed modes, but that gets kind of boring, right? So it'll take some playing around to figure out what I really want these to do to get something that works for most shows. But in the meantime, yeah, maybe 1's a better number. Oh, there's 12. So we're going back to a more static. So a static scene to a static scene. It looks nice, right? When you don't have mode changes, that works fine. When we go down to 10, and we got some odd behavior here. Let's try 1 as a last ditch effort. Maybe that's just where we end up. Again, this speed 1 here that you can't see is for the chases. We're not using that. We're at fade 2. Let's go down to 1. Hit enter. We're on 10. Let's go up to 11. It's still a little flashy. I can see it on the wall, but you can't see, but it's obviously doing something it's not supposed to. So maybe one set of a certain gig, we will have just static changes. So we're going from like a 12 down to an 11, just to get some color changes. And maybe the third set or whatever, we have all of the rear lights in a certain mode and they stay that way. So again, it's a compromise. But with this controller, you're limited on what you can do. For the level of detail that I want to do, really you need software, right? I want to transition from one scene to another where the colors transition, but the mode stays where it is until the last second and jumps, right? It goes from 0 to 180, right? It doesn't roll from 0 to 180 as the lights change, right? The lights can change and then boom, this one jumps. That's software based. This controller can't do that. It'd be awesome if it could do that. That's a very minor gripe, but I can't program transition speeds per channel, but it is what it is. Anyway, let me know what you think. If I can come up with a better solution or a different plan of attack for this thing, I'll let you know, but we'll see you next time.